Welcome to the 5 for 2 podcast with me, your host Adele, where we say no to careers where you're trading 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. A place we discuss all things career, confidence, and money moves. I want to motivate, teach, and empower ambitious women to achieve more, earn more, feel more confident, and enjoy the work they do. It's all about believing you can have everything you want in your career and then going and getting it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. Hope you're all doing well. This week I'm talking about something small and simple but important. Don't badmouth your ex-employer. There is such thing as being too honest in an interview, and I'm going to explain why. First and foremost, you will look like the problem before we even get into it, okay? If you take nothing else from this episode, you look like the problem when you're doing all the bad mouthing. I do not care how good your interview goes, how nice you think the people are. Even if they're talking rubbish about your company because they've heard things or they know things about your boss, you're still not going to meet them where they are. Listen, if pigs roll around in dirt and you go and join them, you will also roll around in the same dirt. We are not doing that. So let's keep ourselves elevated. Now listen, I know your boss might have been a dick, but no one else needs to know that, not out of your mouth, especially not until you've got the job. So let's talk about this thing. When you go for interviews, they're always going to ask you, why are you leaving your most recent job? Why did you leave your job if you've already left? And the problem with this is, even if you've had a bad experience, not everyone can articulate a negative situation well. Not everyone can articulate it in a way that it lands for the person that you're telling it to, or it lands the way that you want it to. You know how sometimes things sound better in our head, and then when we say them, they sound like trash? That's what sometimes happens at interview when you start talking negatively about your old job or your old boss or your old colleagues or the task you had to do or the systems you had to use. Listen, no one wants to work with the person who complains about every little thing, and an interview is only short. So if you, during that interview, even if you only complain about 3 things, it's going to feel like 23 things because it's going to take you at least 5 or 10 minutes to complain about those things. The interview's not that long. So you're now going to feel like you're a complainy person. You're a miserable person. And I know some of you are screaming at the podcast right now saying, yeah, but Adele, if I don't tell the truth, then I won't know if this new company is exactly the same. And then I could end up in the same situation. And also, if I can't be honest, why would I want to work somewhere where I'm not honest? Listen, I say it all the time and I'm going to say it again. The way I talk to my friends is not the way I talk to my grandma. So if you're one of those people who's screaming at me saying you need to be honest at all times, do you speak to your mum and your grandma the same? Do you speak to your friends and your grandma the same? Would you wear what you wear to the beach in church? I'm just keeping it 100. No one is 100% honest or authentic in every area. There is a time and a place, and an interview is not the place for all the extra honesty. Them companies ain't being honest with you. They're not telling you about the toxic boss that's been there for 10 years that they can't get rid of because that person performs really well, or it's the boss's brother or cousin or best friend. They're not telling you about that. They're not telling you why they got rid of the last 3 people. They're not telling you when they underpay people. You can be too honest. They're not being honest. Why are you being extra honest? What if your old boss and the person interviewing you are friends? Have you thought about that? What if the person interviewing you has some input or sits on the board at the other company? You don't know. The world is a small world, yeah? What's that rule? 5 or 6 degrees of separation? Like between every person, there's either 5 or 6 people that you know that will connect you to another person. I have seen it so many times. I'm going to give you an example. I worked with someone. She was my client. She was a manager of a company and she used to get staff from me as a recruitment company. One day, someone didn't turn up. She screamed at me like a wild banshee. Then started screaming about how we use them and we take all the money. Like just literally went off, lost her mind. I was trying to be polite. She was swearing at me, all sorts. Hung up the phone. About a few weeks later, she called back and she wanted to use our services again. I said, absolutely not, because no. She screamed at me again. No one comes to work to be screamed at. However, Fast forward a year or so later, I saw her name pop up to be interviewed by me to work at my company. Now, I don't care what anyone says. She clearly does not work well under pressure or stress. She was rude and she swore. I'm now the person interviewing you. Why would I give you a job to work for me? That doesn't make sense. Why would I? That's me being 100% real. Why would I? And in all honesty, I asked her in a very professional way. Obviously, our paths have crossed before because I'm not going to beat around the bush. That was me being a bit too honest. No, but I professionally asked her, like, obviously in that situation, do you feel like there's anything you could have done differently? And she took it like a champ and she answered the question really, really well. She didn't answer all her questions really well, but she did answer that really well. However, she can now not sit in front of me and say to me, oh, I deal with stress and pressure really well. Under pressure, I can do X, Y, Z. I'm really good with customers. She can't say that. She can't say that. I'm really good with clients. She can't say that. I'm really good at relationship building. That's not by my experience with her. Now, it might be true, but how can she say it's true to me? So what I'm saying to you, and the reason I'm giving you that example, is you do not know who you're speaking to. Okay? The same thing happened to me when I offered her the job at one company. The day she was meant to start, she just didn't show up. I called her and was like, oh, we were expecting you at 10. She was like, oh yeah, I'm not coming again. I can't be bothered. I'm not taking that job. Like, she was so rude about it. So chill. Fast forward 5 years, I'm head of another company. She wants to interview with us and she comes for the interview. I remember her being the unprofessional girl. So like I said, it's a small world. What if the person interviewing you knows the people at the other company? Be careful. You can be too honest. I am not saying you shouldn't say what you don't like about a company, but there's a professional way to do it. What you should talk about is what you don't enjoy. So for instance, the reason I'm leaving my last job is because I didn't have much autonomy. And I am a really strong leader. And I thrive best when I have room to like manage a team, grow a team. I've been able to take a team from earning 32K a month to 100K a month. I love those opportunities. And I can see in your role, you're looking for someone to do that. So I think this type of role will be more suited to me. There, I've just given you the perfect answer without saying in my last company, all they did was micromanage me. They were idiots. They were on top of me. I didn't feel like I had any decision-making power, no autonomy. Even though I was a manager, I was just a manager on paper. Do you see the difference? One makes me sound complaining and problematic. The other one makes me sound professional and like you want to give me the job. You want the job, right? You want to sound professional, right? Because it's a professional setting. So instead of bad mouthing someone, what you can tell them is what you can do for them and why maybe you didn't have much of that at your last job. In my last job, we didn't do a lot of compliance. I thought there was going to be more compliance, but there wasn't. That was very minimal because there was a compliance team, which I wasn't aware of initially. So now I'm looking for a role where I can do much more compliance because that's my skill set, that's my strength. I'm really fast when it comes to compliance without compromising anything. I've done immigration, I've done DBSs. Do you see how nice these answers are? I do not sound miserable. I do not sound like I complain, and I do not sound problematic. No matter what you think you sound like, when you slag off an old boss or an old company as a whole, or even a system, you might be like, oh, they use this rubbish system called blah, blah, blah. What if that new company uses that same system? But maybe they use it in a different way. And maybe they use other elements of it, or maybe they use it in the exact same way, but they also have bigger teams. So actually you wouldn't care if you were in a bigger team using that same system. What I'm saying to you is, just be careful of the things you're complaining about. What if you complain about the system and then they're like, oh yeah, we use a more sophisticated system, but systems fail all the time. So we want to have someone that we hire who's able to adapt and be flexible when a system isn't working. But you slagging off a system and not talking about how you helped to get around it, how you still helped to deliver your role, even though the system was old and slow, again, makes you look like you have no initiative and you're problematic. So you can either be the person who finds problems or finds solutions. In interviews, you should be telling them about the solutions that you were able to find, the solutions that you created. You should not have time to be bad-mouthing anyone because you should be there to big yourself up, big your skills up, talk about why they should give you the job, not why your last boss was a dick. So this episode was short and sweet, but I want you to remember, do not go into any interview being extra honest and talking negatively about a past employer or a past system or a past company. Flip it around and use it to make yourself sound professional and use it to connect you to the new job. But don't fall into the trap. I don't care. Like I said, even if they're bad mouthing, if they're like, oh, I've heard about that company you used to work for. I've been in an interview and someone said that to me. Oh, I've heard about that company. I've heard that it's like working for the military. Like they're so over the top. They'll burn you out and blah, 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 blah. Listen, my answer was, it's really strict there and it can be quite tough, but I feel like that built me. That is what's made me a really strong recruiter. And I flipped it on its head. Why? Because I'm not agreeing with you. Misery likes company. I'm not about to be your company. And then when I leave, you're like, oh yeah, she was too miserable. She moaned loads. Even though we were moaning too, she moaned extra. Listen, don't be the friend that's in the group. You know, everyone's gossiping and then you join in and then everyone turns on you. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Anyway, I hope that's helped someone, because at our big age, we cannot be making something like this make us lose a job or not get an offer because we now look problematic, because we don't know how to articulate a negative situation into a positive. Always find the silver lining. Anyway, I'm going to go now because otherwise I'm going to keep going. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you know someone who's a complainer and you need to share this with them, please go ahead and share this with them. I'll speak to you in the next episode. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed and motivated you to confidently take steps towards your next career move. If you enjoyed it, screenshot and share it on your socials, tag me on Instagram, and come join my community of amazing women working on leveling up their confidence and career. Thanks for listening and see you next time.